That's been done.
To grow.
Friends that you
Hello, Miss Rachel. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
How am I doing?
How are you doing?
Let me think. I thought the Yankees losing would be the down point of the week.
Oh, so you've had a
Now,
hard week.
I've had a very difficult week, and I'm not going to talk politics until April when we invade Poland.
Aww.
But sometimes, as I said, I did a marvelous Facebook post with President Lincoln sitting at the Lincoln Memorial weeping with the words, "But if you try sometimes, you just might find you get what you deserve." And so that's what happened.
Wow.
Anyway, for those of you in the Ukraine listening, take care of yourself. Welcome to Raising the Standards. Great to have you with us today. We're going to get educated today. We're pretty excited about that. John Bailey is in the studio with us, an alternative dispute resolution attorney. How are you, John?
Doing well. How are you?
He's leaning in like it's a deposition.
He's ready. He's ready.
Delighted to see you, and delighted to see you in particular since the kid over there, the overachiever, is going to law school. Mm-hmm. And I have not been in the same room with two attorneys since I was accused of election. It's a long story.
Well, thankfully, it's only one today.
Didn't take long for me to get back to politics, did it?
There you go. Yeah. We only got one, but yeah.
All right. Tell me a little bit about your background, John. You have an office in Salinas, in a lovely old building.
Well, I'm actually in the First Armory building,
Okay.
which is on the corner of Salinas Street and Alisal. It was my father-in-law's practice where I started with Brian Finnegan.
Okay.
All these years later, I'm still there. My wife is my landlord, owns the building, and we just redid the building. And I'm a lawyer who practices corporate law, agricultural law, and mediation.
Good.
Where'd you go to school?
Chapman University School of Law, now called Fowler School of Law, I believe.
Which is where?
It's in Orange.
Okay.
Yeah, Orange County, Orange.
Okay.
So Southern California. Really enjoyed my time there.
Now, was there an epiphany when you were 9 years old that said, "I want to be an attorney with a cool card"? Or
well, actually,
I like the card.
I had a whole career before. I started working with primates early on. I worked in the drug industry for 15 years. Mm-hmm. And then I decided I wanted to make a change and took a career aptitude test, and it came up with I should be a lawyer or an interior designer. I have no idea what those things have in common.
That's a vast
But I told my wife
difference.
this, or not. Yeah, I told Colleen this, and she said, maybe you should go to law school.
She
just disregarded the interior.
Like never happened.
Handled, so.
I could either practice law, or we could move the couch over there and perhaps put some blinds up. So, what did you do in the pharmaceutical business?
When
you said you worked with primates.
Yeah, and I was in drug research, so I was in quality assurance. I worked with primates, briefly. Got bitten a whole lot.
Really?
Almost got Ebola. I worked in the lab where they actually did the hot zone. So the main character in that, Dan Dalgard, was the guy I worked with. It was a very interesting job. In fact, my manager from there, Sue Weymouth, actually came out and visited us about a week ago, so I still keep in contact with those people. Sure, they've got great stories about it.
You're getting bit too often, so we're moving you to the bat wing. Oh, good. That's some luck.
Yeah, and then I did sales. So I was selling pharmaceuticals, and then I came out to California. We were selling pharmaceuticals to Kaiser, so the managed care, and then I made the move
Big move.
very quickly from drugs to law school. From the
See,
drug
it's
business.
funny how many of us sold pharmaceuticals, but mine was just to get through college.
Yeah, all of ours were legal. All of ours were legal. They did a moral
I
character.
am not a dealer.
That's a little
They
different.
did a moral character.
A little
background
extra.
check.
A little
Yeah,
different.
clean,
A little different.
so.
Question for you. Have you seen Chimp Crazy? The documentary?
No.
Okay, it's a documentary on Netflix. Have you seen
Okay.
this?
No.
It's about a woman
Poor Rachel's on her own all of a sudden.
she raises chimpanzees, and then she
Did she get her
farms them.
face bitten off or anything?
No,
Oh, it's
not,
not one
in
of the awful
not in the
stories, okay.
documentary, but it does. I mean, from what I've gleaned from the documentary, when they reach the age of about 5, they become very different and hard to keep as pets. You know, they don't want to wear the diaper anymore.
But
And,
you don't have children, but that's a universal
well,
truth.
that's kind
by
of what
the
this
way.
woman's doing.
Yeah.
I mean, she wants to, the chimpanzee is her baby.
I loved the animals,
I
which
bet.
is why I couldn't really work in the laboratory too long. It was emotionally very difficult to do, actually.
Yeah.
Probably why they kept biting you.
Well, yeah, probably. I feel like anyone who has worked with primates, and humans are primates also, so I
Right.
think this extends, as you say, to the entire group of primates. They're terrifying.
I bet.
You know, I would not be putting my face close to any primate. So.
Yeah. Human or chimp or monkey they can be very terrifying.
Speaking
Well, you
of
know what?
lawyers,
In all
exactly.
aspects.
But and you know what I love? You always hear the line, "They don't know how strong they are." No, they do.
I didn't think they do.
You don't know how strong they are,
I think they do.
or how hungry apparently.
Yeah.
Okay, so you work in pharmaceutical business, then you went out and sold for the Those were the days when pharmaceutical business that you could take clients to Cabo.
oh yeah, I did
you
an
know.
awful lot of fishing.
Yeah, that's right.
That's true.
That's it.
I would always go out with the professional baseball players in Miami.
Yeah.
So it was fun. I really enjoyed it. It was a good
Did
time.
you know A-Rod in those days?
I didn't personally know him, no. Although we did sell Decadurabolin, so I don't know that those two things are related.
So you didn't work with Balco doing the.
Don't even know who that is.
Balco was the performance-enhancing drugs. That was the whole story
It's
with A-Rod and
excellent
Bonds.
that I don't know what it is.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, that's the story I'm
And
sticking
I
with.
was just going to say, you immediately denied it before I finished saying, I don't know
I've
about
been
that.
trained well.
How about you, Rachel? I mean, you. We make jokes that you're a cougar
What?
now, but you're.
I'm not.
She's not. She's a cougar.
He always says that. He's always wanted, she's going after the younger guys. I've never dated a younger guy in my life. It's just never happened.
Well, in this room, you're not likely to.
Never
so I wouldn't
happened,
worry about
okay?
that. But
Yeah.
you were in commercial real estate and still are.
I am, yeah.
All right.
I am.
But that's a pretty big jump. I mean, you're still a young woman, but it's still, you haven't
It's
been
different.
in formal academia in a long time.
It's like 14 years.
Yeah, so it's got to
Yeah.
be like it's off the high diving board.
It's a little different. No, for sure. No, it's been definitely an emotional roller coaster, to be honest with you. And I questioned, at the very beginning of it, I questioned all the time whether or not I could do it, if I was capable of doing it, which there is a really big, interesting talking to because I'm really tight with a lot of the people in my class. And it's cool. We have a group, we have text, we text each other. And a lot of the people in my class really have a really good internal monologue where they'll say, when I graduate or when, and for me it's all, well, if I am able to because for me I'm pretty I'm kind of just, if I'm able to get through this semester, because I'm just anxious. I'm a little anxious still, but I'm only in my first year, so of course I haven't been successful yet, really. It's been different.
Now, you guys, from a generational standpoint, are going through a very, very different approach and the criteria of first year of law as you did. I mean, you're basically doing online.
Oh yeah, it's online.
And you would talk about early law school. Was it the kind of pressure and no sleep that
It was the
in
paper
medical
chase.
school?
If you want to know what law school was like when I attended law school, it was the paper chase. I mean, it wasn't Harvard. It was an excellent school, but it was exactly like the paper chase. That's exactly the law school experience that captures it.
Yeah. It's a challenge. Yeah. No, it's challenging for sure. For
Although
me, it's-
the virtual, I believe, the virtual law school experience, I know Monterey College of Law is where you're attending. I've taught law school at Monterey College of Law. And they're, I think, on the cutting edge with the virtual. And in fact, the new bar exam, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, starting in February, I think it's a real opportunity because you might not have to go to the big, terrifying, and it is terrifying, arena where everyone takes the bar exam simultaneously. I don't know, it's 5,000 people or however many thousand people are in there taking the bar exam at the same time. It's going to be changing, so it'll
Now,
be more like a virtual experience.
Has the percentage of folks that pass the first time the bar exam, has that changed over the years?
It's published on the State Bar website, and typically it's about 50%, I think, 50, around there. It depends if it's ABA, if it's state, or if it's out-of-state ABA.
What is ABA?
American,
Bar
I don't know,
Association.
Bar Association. Yeah, there's different levels of law schools accreditation.
So you could take the bar exam just for California?
Well, you do take the bar exam by state.
By state, okay.
Everyone takes it by
There's
state.
no universal bar exam in
Well-
terms of like nationally.
I think it's because of Louisiana and how they practice law.
It depends. It's a complicated question. So basically, there's reciprocity between some states, and that's actually what's very interesting about the change. Is most of the states do a multi-state bar examination (MBE) for the multiple choice, and that is shared by all those states. So if you take it in one state, you take it in another state. That's actually been an issue with the changes that are being proposed to the multiple choice portion of the test, because it's always been the California bar exam uses the multi-state multiple choice questions. They're changing that to a private company named Kaplan, I think is what they're going to use. Could theoretically change because I think the California Supreme Court just approved that plan like October 22nd, so it's hot off the press.
Yeah.
If Kaplan is writing the questions, they're going to be more California-centric, and they're not going to be the same as the other state questions, which is good if you're in a California state school. If you're at an ABA school, I think the deans didn't like that so much. They wrote a letter. They'd like to see more multi-state.
That makes sense too, because my criminal law professor has been talking about this quite a bit, and he's been having us just focus on California. We haven't really been focusing on common law and criminal law. We're just reading those CalCrims and just trying to memorize those. And so that makes sense because some of the other professors have questioned it because something will come up in another class, and I think that's his whole thing. He's anticipating this. So that's another thing, is that the professors are on your side. They're trying to help you.
But the bar,
sure.
the bar exam is a general exam for attorneys, as opposed to, is there a different one if you're taking commercial law, or you want to be, depending on what part of the law?
There are different types of examinations like patent law and specializations, but when you say the bar, you're pretty much talking about the bar, the California bar in California, and every state has a bar exam. Some states have reciprocity, meaning if you take it in state A, you can practice law in state B. California is pretty restrictive that you can't do that.
Are there states that the bar exam is easier?
Oh, of course.
Well, what's the where do you go? No,
No, it's a good question.
No,
it's a
I
very
mean-
you question. I like it.
excuse me.
It's perfect.
And I didn't think it would take this long for me to make a sports analogy.
It's perfect.
But
yeah.
it's like the U.S. Open. There are so many openings to play in the Open, but there are you have to compete against 400 players in California, but in Montana there's 7 positions. So there are places where it behooves you to try competitively there. Mm-hmm. So if someone in one of these states, which will remain nameless, but if in Mississippi, if it's easier and you pass it, and then you want to practice law if there's not reciprocity.
Reciprocity.
In California, with California, do you have to take California's test?
You do.
You do. Is California's the toughest?
Maybe New York.
Absolutely.
It's a tough. Yeah.
I think even people in New York admit it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Interesting.
So can you just can you walk up and take the exam?
I don't think so.
I'm thinking of Suits now. Where,
Right. Right.
So-
Can you?
I'm not a specialist in the bar exam, so I'm an attorney. I happen to have passed the bar
No, I
exam.
know.
So you
yeah,
don't.
I
But I'm just
know.
saying, do you necessarily have to have gone to law school?
Well, it depends. So first of all, Michael, The correct answer to every legal question is very simple. It depends.
That's what they all say. It's true.
So that is the answer. So should I elaborate or just
No,
leave
I
it
was
at
just
that?
wondering.
That's true.
I was
They
just
all say
wondering
that.
who's charging who for this interview.
Yeah.
So the rules in California are different than the rules in other states. So it depends what bar exam you're speaking of. I would talk about California, and to my knowledge, you don't even need an undergraduate degree to take the California bar exam. You may have to take what's called the baby bar, which there's another small bar exam that you take beforehand. And if you pass that and show competence, then you're eligible to take the primary bar exam. I don't know all the details, but basically, yes.
But it depends.
It always depends.
It always
It does depend.
The baby bar, the bar is much
That's
lower
what
if you
Kim-
have short arms.
That's
you
what
know.
Kim Kardashian took, I believe, was the baby bar.
Did she really?
I believe she was studying for the baby bar. I don't watch
And
the
how
show,
did
but I heard it.
how did that go for her?
I don't know. I never heard any more about it. I don't
I
watch the
think
show.
that answers your question.
I
Okay.
didn't. I didn't watch the
If
show.
we haven't heard from the Kardashians, not saying that this is a fact,
It's not my show.
there's a legal principle there.
I thought that was John's way of saying, let's move on.
Let's move on. Let's go. Yeah.
I'm sure their attorneys are listening, and we have no comment.
Oh my god.
Well, not to dwell on this too long, but if you commit a crime and decide to defend yourself, but have passed the bar, you become your own attorney.
No,
No,
not necessarily.
depends.
It does depend.
But that's a good question too, because I've talked to a lot of attorneys who they would not want to represent themselves.
No, well, certainly you wouldn't. I mean,
That's a
that would
thing.
indicate potentially that you're not competent. So you couldn't be incompetent and choose to be your own attorney. So there's just one example.
We're talking to John Bailey and to Rachel Shelton, both legal scholars.
Not me, but he is. For
Well, it all
sure.
depends with
Yeah,
you,
No,
but,
I'm dependent for sure.
John's practice is alternative dispute resolution.
Is that jams?
That is certainly not JAMS. No, JAMS ADR is one of the most respected ADR firms or alternative dispute resolution firms in the nation. So if I have a case, not to give a plug to them, but that's who I would look towards, just because a lot of the judges around here end up at JAMS, and it's a nice way to have dispute resolution by a set of rules that's local, that's published. And so, JAMS ADR is just one ADR firm.
Okay. And I want to make it clear, as you mentioned before the show, you're not here promoting
absolutely
yourself
not.
because you've got more business you can possibly handle.
Well, I'm not accepting new clients.
You're not accepting
You're
new
not
clients.
clients.
You're here supporting Rachel
I am, and you.
guys.
and me. See,
You've been
but you're
very
gonna
supportive
need
of
you're
the
gonna need
jazz
you're gonna need
industry
room.
in
You're gonna need room for
Jazz
more
law.
clients if you represent me.
Oh,
Alternative dispute literally means a different argument, I would assume.
Well, basically, ADR, if you're a lawyer, and it's alternative dispute resolution, is like mediation, arbitration, things that are keeping you out of court. So basically, what I did by putting that on the name of the firm is say, look, we don't want to end up in court. We want to settle this through some non-court channel.
So, it's a rolling of the dice, though, obviously. But,
It is a
but
rolling of the
perhaps
dice.
less than going the other way.
Well,
but,
yeah.
I mean, you're saying I have what I believe is a sound argument. If I sincerely believe that, and if I make that argument to someone who is of sound character and logic, I'm likely to do all right.
And you come up with a deal that everybody can agree. In mediation, you come up with a deal that everyone can agree to.
So the less you believe in your case would be the less likely you'd go to mediation.
wait.
If you-
Like in your position,
Yeah.
the
That's
less
a double
firm you are in your
That is a double
position.
negative.
So if you're really,
No.
if you're flexible in your position,
Yeah.
then is that repeat
Basically,
what you just
yeah.
said? I forgot
What
now.
I'm saying is you're putting your faith in one person, ultimately, than putting your faith in the entire
Well,
system.
first of all, you end up more likely than not in mediation or arbitration, which are two of the forms of ADR, because you're in a contract, and your contract says you need to do that. So the contract will say prior to initiating a lawsuit, you need to attend mediation. A mediator has no power to make a decision, really.
Okay.
They can encourage you to agree to a decision, but they have no actual power.
Who ultimately has the power?
The parties.
The two parties.
The parties to make.
So
the
here's
decision.
like
Okay.
a scenario could be I have a landlord who has a lease with a tenant. Tenant wakes up one day and goes, you know what? I really want to move to Colorado, and they've got 3 years remaining on their lease. And they go to the landlord and they say, hey, I'm going to give you 30 days notice that I'm going to leave. And the landlord goes, no, you've got 3 years remaining on your lease, and I put 20 grand into the space for you, and you have to stay. Well, they do have a contract, and maybe the tenant's looking for other. Oh, well, you know what? I think my space has this, and this isn't working for me because of this, or I have my ADA access or whatever. They've got issues or reasons. So then you can go to this third party who goes, okay, your position is over here, your position is over here. Let's try to find something in here that everybody can live with, kind of
Correct.
thing.
But if the parties can't agree, ultimately, is there a mediator who can make a decision? You know, like
No.
if you go for like a sports contract,
The
they're going to
definition of
offer you
mediator
X
is you
or
don't
Y.
have the power to make the decision.
Is there a judge that can make a decision
Well,
that
so
becomes
typically,
essentially a mediator?
that's an arbitration.
Yeah. Okay.
So you have mediation. So you can have a contract that says mediation. If you can't get a decision
We go to
by the
arbitration.
parties, you have mandatory arbitration.
All right.
Mandatory, meaning you can't go to court.
Once you go down that road,
If it's in the contract that you have mandatory arbitration, then you get a single or sometimes three, depending what the contract says. So the more important the matter, the more arbitrators you may have.
interesting.
So you can have a panel of arbitrators even. And then the parties have
And-
to agree on the arbitrator.
And then if it's three, does it just have to be a majority?
What's the answer?
It depends.
It depends on what
You're
the
good.
contract
I'm good.
You're
You know
good.
how tough it is to lead me?
You did it.
depends on what the contract
He did
says.
it.
You got the answer.
So you could write a contract that says, okay, if we can get one of the arbitrators to go for us, we'll accept it?
Sure. Well,
It'd be silly.
I mean, basically,
but-
if you've got a one arbitrator contract,
Well, then-
yes. If you've got a three arbitrator contract, then you would say either all three have to agree, or two of the three have to agree.
Do both parties have to agree on the number of arbitrators
In the contract,
in the contract?
sure,
So can that contract be written any way you want?
of course.
So in theory, you could say, if I agreed with the person that with my dispute, we want 7 arbitrators.
Why would you do that?
I don't know. I'm just saying.
It'd be very expensive.
It all depends.
Yes.
This is-
Touche.
So, like in Seinfeld, remember the Seinfeld episode where Elaine tells Kramer, if you fix my neck, I'll give you my bicycle? And remember, and then they go to Newman, who's the mediator, or I guess more the arbitrator, because Newman has to make a decision about what they're going to do. And so then he says, well, maybe we'll cut the bicycle in half. And Kramer says, no, if the bicycle, we don't want to damage the bicycle, we'll give it to her. And then he gets the bicycle because he cares more about the bicycle. But yet he got to make that decision. But you could also
Was
say,
that an original Seinfeld idea?
it was
or
in.
Did I read that?
It was in
somewhere?
Seinfeld, but this
Okay.
is kind of the crazy part about that episode too. Is when they had their meeting of the minds and formed their contract. Elaine wasn't really serious. She didn't have intent to actually form a contract. So then that's another part of it. It was like a joke. She threw out a little joke, but then he took it as a contract. So that's another part of the issue that they had. But you and I speak Seinfeld, so that's why.
Well,
I bring it back
I
to
know. I was
Seinfeld
just
for
going to
us.
say we will get back to these the Bible sitcoms in just a minute. Talking to John Bailey, an alternative dispute resolution attorney. Let's do a little business, and we'll get back and chat more. You are listening to Raising the Standards, the Internet's finest hour.
Anywhere.
Located in Scotts Valley, Steel Bonnet Brewing Company is a family-owned brewery and tap room that focuses on creating delicious English, Scottish, and American ales. We are open every day and offer food trucks and live music on the weekends. With both indoor and outdoor seating, the brewery is the perfect spot to relax with your favorite drinks and loved ones. Bring your furry or human family members, as we are dog and kid friendly. Swing by the tap room at 20 Victor Square off Scotts Valley Drive or visit steelbond.net for more information.
Bentime Limoncello is a unique wine-based limoncello that blends quality and craftsmanship. Made in Santa Cruz with a premium California wine and brandy, it combines bright citrus notes with a delicate Chardonnay aroma and the richness of brandy. Perfect in a limoncello spritz or with ginger beer. Ask for it in your favorite restaurant. Find out more at BentTimeLimoncello.com.
And we're back to raising the standards. I used to do that whenever I was in a deposition. Whenever they turned the camera on, I'd say, "And we're back." You don't need to say that. And we're back.
They probably loved it.
Apart from Kramer and Elaine,
Yeah.
what is there? Give me a typical case of yours, and is there a typical, like I know from your website you work with small ranchers and stuff, is there a typical group that goes that direction or would come to you?
Well, I think farmers in general don't like to have their name in the court record because even if you are 100% in the right, if you have 25 cases with your name in the local court record, it just doesn't look good. It's the appearance. So they prefer to just handle things without them ever getting into the court record.
So if you go that direction, nothing appears in the.
Absolutely, yeah.
As
long as you do so prior to the case being filed, So basically, you can go to a lawyer, and the lawyer can work through ADR, and the case never gets filed. Or, I've actually had cases that have been filed, and we've actually been able to get them removed from the court record. So I had a case, and there's nothing wrong with me telling about this case, but I had a tenant that basically had been evicted from her place. The place she had gone to the landlord. The landlord had said, you got to go. And she said, well, the reason that I've gone to you is because there's bed bugs in the place. And it was a very large landlord. So she did end up getting evicted. And I called the landlord's attorney. I said, look, this just isn't fair to this lady. She was a Section 8 lady. And she had made this valid complaint.
Section 8 being
basically subsidized housing.
Okay.
And the very ethical attorney looked at it. He said, "This is wrong." He had a case. He had her evicted. She was gone. There was nothing she could do. She had no money to appeal the thing. And out of the goodness of his heart, he got the case expunged, removed, so she could get Section 8 housing because she was on the up and up. This actually had happened.
Yeah,
but he got the landlord to go for it.
He did because he was an ethical attorney.
Good.
Well, or not handle that client, obviously, if the client wouldn't.
Yeah, but this was a
change
very
their mind.
large, very reputable leaser of apartments. I would never name who they were, but
Sure.
He just looked at it and said, "This is okay." So that's the kind of thing you can do. I typically represent landlords, not tenants, but occasionally you get a story and you say, this is something I want to do, and I think I probably did it pro bono. I sincerely don't remember.
Yeah.
I do remember she gave me a very nice gift
That's it.
afterwards, which was very nice. It's still in my office.
Well, no, and that's so important. Like I had a tenant years ago who I was managing the property, and he they evicted him, and it was not a legal eviction. Just from an outsider's perspective, looking at it, I've seen a lot of evictions. This is not above bar. And so I was on the phone with him, and because he was really upset, and I told him to go to the Senior Citizens Legal Services, because in this situation, he was an older guy. It was funny. I told him to go to the Senior Citizens Legal Services, and he goes, "Oh, I'm not old." I said, "No, it's not about being old." I said, "But I think you might be over 65, and I think you should do this." And so he goes, "Okay," but he was of a generation and of a mind where someone said you have to move, and he just started packing his stuff. He didn't think about whether or not it was ethical. He didn't think about the fact that he had nowhere to go. He just thought, I'm being told by a superior that I have to do this, therefore I'm going to do this. And I told him, I said, look, you're going to move, I get it, but maybe you can have some control over the way you do it, and that you find a place before you need to move. And he rolled down there, and they helped him, and he got the time he needed, and he did move, but he got the time that he needed to move.
Sound advice.
It's
How about that, John? She
didn't.
Didn't say it all depends. She actually came up with something.
But it's cool that they have those services because they were so helpful with him, and he needed help. He was not going to be able to do that on his own.
But do you, John, do you find yourself in when it does happen of just shaking your head when, as you say, you talk to another attorney that's ethical and, hey, man, come on, this makes sense. Let's just do this. And the guy says, of course. But
I think you'd be surprised.
you run into guys
ethical-
that just say no.
Almost all attorneys that I come across are ethical.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of jokes.
Well, no, I understand that, but I'm
I
just
think,
saying, but they they have a client, so
You can be a zealous advocate
yeah.
and push a matter further than the other side might like it and still be ethical. In fact, I think you're required to be a zealous advocate and to push fairly hard. Looking at unlawful detainer, and that's an area or evictions, an area that I know a lot about because I taught on unlawful detainer law at Monterey College of Law. And then looking at the new rules that have come down in Salinas, it's the Wild West out there.
Really?
Wow.
It's completely different than it ever was before. And so that's a big it depends. So if you're going to have an unlawful detainer or an eviction and you're a tenant or a landlord, it's really important that you look to where you are located for that particular. Is it residential or is it commercial? But look to where you're located because now you've got city by city rules. And it's a minefield.
Now, Dr. John, who's a dear friend of ours on the show here, Dr. John Clark with Prime Care, they've got those things, the laptops that they carry around with them.
Oh, yeah.
With updates, they punch it in and say what's new, what's going on. How do you stay up to date on everything? Because you say all of a sudden, what? When did they change that?
Well, when I was in law school, I was the Westlaw rep, so I'm not giving a pitch to Westlaw, but I will say that every time Lexis calls me to try to give me a subscription, I say I was the Westlaw rep. Like I've learned Westlaw. It's a way of thinking.
And what is Westlaw?
Westlaw is a legal research tool.
Okay.
But
is that something that's updated constantly?
Oh, yes. You subscribe to it and you use that and you can do a search.
So you could do a search. You can hang on 1 second. You could just turn and type something in and get the answer. Go ahead, say it.
Depends.
Yeah.
Yeah, see.
It depends because the system is not updated to the minute.
Yeah.
It's funny. So we're on the way over here, and I'm talking to my wife, and she said, "Well, I see right here on the State Bar website it says Kaplan is going to be doing the testing." I said, "Well, that's not necessarily true." She said, "It says right here on the State Bar website." I said, well, but it was October 22nd that the California Supreme Court made that administrative decision. And so theoretically, someone could bring a challenge to that. Theoretically, it could go up to another court. And I wouldn't want to go on here saying it's for sure Kaplan and have all these students studying Kaplan and then coming to me saying, you told us it was gavel down. And so it does depend. You say it depends to pause yourself.
Right.
And then what does it potentially depend upon? Those are the answers that only probably a lawyer should be giving. And that's where you need a license to practice law in order to answer, is those answers to it depends on what. Because you might know 2 or 3 of them, but if you don't know them all, you're going to commit legal malpractice, potentially. And then you need insurance.
Well, and that's a common thing, too, in some of these highly professional fields, like in the legal field, but then also in the medical field too. People tend, because what you're saying is very important, and the person that you're working with is probably nervous, and so they really do latch on to your words, and so you do have to be very careful the way you phrase things. Like I remember when I was taking my mom up to Stanford to get, to trade whatever, a test or this or whatever, she would be asking the oncologist something, and she would memorize every word he said.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, God, this poor guy has to really think about everything he says because she's going to get in the car with me and she's going to repeat this one sentence over and over and over again and ask me to interpret it 6 different ways. And so it really does. That makes sense to have to pause yourself and really kind of, and it also, another thing I've really seen just in working is that, and in talking to different attorneys, you really, unless you're really working in the field, how it may read on paper is not necessarily how it goes. You know what I mean? Like I've known a guy who actually, he took the bar, but he's never practiced law. And so he, if you ask him a question, people always want to ask him for legal advice. And he always goes, I couldn't tell you in practice how this actually goes, but this is what the rules say. So it's very different. The interpretation can be really different.
You know, it's interesting, folks. Normally, I'm delighted that we don't have a camera here in the studio for the show. But did you happen to notice when John was quoting his wife, he put his hands on his hips?
No.
Yeah, he was kind of like talking down. You know?
Oh,
I don't know where that's going.
I didn't wag my finger.
Oh my God.
There was a real attitude there.
Well, the cameras, the lack of camera is for you. So
Let's be
real here.
I remember that day.
Yeah, think back.
So let's talk. I don't need specific fees from you, but let's talk about when you're doing up a contract and decide to go with the alternative dispute. Is it likely to be less expensive, more expensive, the same, or?
Well, the fees for a lawyer are the fees for a lawyer.
Yeah, okay.
Whatever they're practicing. So where alternative dispute resolution can save you fees is many times in a contract, the loser agrees to pay the attorney's fees of the other party.
Yeah.
And typically if you're going to mediation, each party agrees to pay their own fees. So that makes a big difference if you're only paying half.
But
it's huge, yeah. Oh, yeah.
But it's not like an injury attorney where you get a percentage.
No, it's not on contingency. It's strictly by the hour.
It's by the hour.
Yeah.
So when Rachel goes to take the test, which is a scant, 4 years?
It's going to be some years, yeah. Well, yeah, like 2.5 years.
2.5 years.
3 years. Well, no, because you got to study for, how long do you have to study for? Months, right?
Well,
6 months?
Probably not a bad idea.
8 months? Oh, it depends. Oh, see, there you go.
Depends.
This guy.
My wife had me doing this very strict exercise regimen. I was on the running machine with my friend Victor, down there working out. So we just had a baby, so she was up taking care of the baby. But her father had given her some instruction to give me.
Oh.
And I was going to work for her father after law school.
So your father-in-law is an attorney.
He's an attorney.
Okay. What kind of attorney?
Brian Finnegan is a land use attorney.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
So I did 3 years of land use when I started out with
Okay.
Brian Finnegan. But he said, you just have to be physically strong. And that was the absolute best advice I have ever had. My friend Victor, I think to this day, the best shape he's ever been in his life is probably practice, getting ready for the bar exam. So we would study intensely.
Yeah.
I mean, there was no working. And I don't think you should work. I think when you prepare to study for the bar exam, if you have a boss who will let you take the time off, just take the time off,
Okay.
put in the 3 months, and physical stamina is tremendously important.
Okay.
Be really strong physically because it is just grueling.
Yeah.
And does that time frame speak volumes in terms of if it takes you 8 months, maybe you shouldn't be doing it?
No, I think it is. It's very much probably like training for a marathon where you want to be intensely studying for, and I don't know what the period would be, but maybe 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. And you don't want to try to, because you cannot maintain that level of performance forever.
Right.
You want to be there. I mean, we had acronyms for our acronyms, and Victor and I, we've been sworn to secrecy because we decided the more offensive the acronym, the easier it was to remember.
Brilliant.
Oh my goodness. I just remember I went to his house and he was Vietnamese. His parents made pho. And he said, you cannot tell them any of our acronyms.
Oh my God, no.
They will not understand.
They'll follow you up.
No, you got to keep those. Oh, yeah, you got to keep those.
So he just said, I will be disowned if we mention that. Victor, I will not be mentioning the acronyms if you're listening.
Never. You would never do that to Victor.
But yeah, we had acronyms for our acronym. It is so much information. It is insane.
Yeah.
Is it all multiple choice?
No.
No, there's essay.
So under the new exam, as they proposed it, which we think is happening, you're going to have 1 day, which is 5 different subjects. I think it's an hour each. Those are your main subjects. Most people take first year torts, con law, real property law, civil procedure.
And are these are like electives? They could choose what they want to take, or is everybody
no.
everybody's taking them?
Everybody's
Okay,
taking
fine.
the bar exam. You're going to get 5. You don't know which ones you're
You
going
don't know
to
which
get.
5. Okay.
And so that's the first day. And then there's what's called a practical exam, which would just be like a real life scenario that they just throw at you. And you have to say, this is what I would do for this scenario. So that's day 1. That's half the points. And then day 2, it used to be multi-state bar exam, meaning you took what everybody took. Now, if things stay as they are on the state bar website, you're going to have Kaplan exam, multiple choice, starting February, which is half your bar points.
Is there a verbal presentation? I mean, you see that in the movies. You have to get up and talk to a.
Do they have that in the movies?
Well, yeah, I think it's Suits. The
I haven't seen Suits.
Oh,
yeah.
Do you watch Suits?
I don't.
No, you don't. Okay.
It's not-
Do you have a favorite legal movie?
Yeah, Paper
Paul
Chase.
Suit.
Paper Chase, okay.
Absolutely. I mean, there's not even a close second.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a movie.
Paper Chase is a thing, and I like.
What was the Newman film where he was? He was a drunk, and he would go. It opened with him going to funerals and passing out his card.
Oh, I don't know.
It was
Don't remember.
Yeah, it's a wonderful film that doesn't come to mind. We were talking with John Bailey from Alternative Dispute Resolutions in Salinas. Let's. You want to do
Your liner?
notes? Let's
Yeah,
do
let's
liner
do
notes.
it.
You got something, and we'll get back to John, and we'll wrap up in a couple of minutes. This week we pay another visit to Broadway with a song that has an interesting history. From the score of Meredith Willson's production of The Music Man, the tune was released under a different title, took 7 years to reach the stage, and ultimately gained widespread airplay by the biggest rock and roll band of all time. No, it's not 76 Trombones, although that would have been kind of a cool cover for the Fab Four. Till I Met You, written by Wilson and recorded by Eileen Wilson in 1950, would become Till There Was You for the musical's opening in 1957. There were bells on the hill, but I never heard them ringing. No, I never heard them at all till there was you. On November 22nd, 1963, yes, that November 22nd, Parlophone Records released the mono version of the album with the Beatles. Their second LP release included All My Lovin', It Won't Be Long, a cover of Chuck Berry's Roll Over Beethoven, and yes, Till There Was You. There was music and wonderful roses, they tell me in sweet meadows of dawn and dew. Perhaps not the sophistication of a Cole Porter, but nonetheless sweet and reminiscent of a post-war America. From the 1961 album Something Nice, Etta Jones gives a terrific, sultry take on this wonderful standard. Enjoy.
There were bells on the hill, but I never heard them ringing. No, I never heard them at all till there was you. There were birds in the sky, but I never saw them winging. No, I never saw them at all till there was you. And there was music, and there were wonderful roses. They tell me in sweet, fragrant meadows of dawn and dew. There was love all around, but I never heard it singing. No, I never heard it at all till there was you.
No one seems to know this, but Amazon actually has a 50 million.
Is that okay?
I think that's,
General
yeah.
term.
I think you figured it out.
It includes my website.
Okay.
You may speak.
Or we? Is the
Yeah, you
song
may
over?
speak. Yeah, our song ended.
No, that was nice. But the music lingers on. We're with John Bailey. We were just talking about, I know you don't need any clients. However,
He's busy.
And I know someday you will need clients, but people in a resolution dispute right now probably don't want to wait for you.
No,
I know it'd be well worth the wait, but might not.
We'll see.
But if someone that's listening says, that makes some sense, and I've got this deal, I've got a ranch, and boom, boom, boom. How do they go about getting started, or where to turn to begin with?
Well, if they want to know about alternative dispute resolution, they could just Google the term alternative dispute resolution. That happens to be the name of my law firm, so they would see my law firm.
Okay.
But every attorney practices ADR. And so, if they would call me, I probably would, at this point, because I'm not accepting new clients, refer them out to somebody else. Monterey County Bar Association has a lawyer referral service. They can get a referral to someone. It's very inexpensive. Even the courts have ADR programs, and they probably could call the court and get a referral. But if you have an attorney and you ask your attorney who does ADR work, they'll know 5 or 6 different attorneys that do alternative dispute resolution.
Well, and as you say, John, every law office does it.
Correct.
And every mechanic does oil and might also do transmissions, but maybe you want a specialist. So, is it incumbent on the person when you call the law firm and says, "Well, I know you do it, but do I want someone that specializes in it?"
Well, it's an area where your specialty is based more on your skill set.
Yeah.
So you need to know what kind of clients they represent.
Okay, now those are great questions to ask. Yeah.
So I think if you are looking at, I'll just say PACA, Perishable Agricultural Commodities Act.
Right.
If you're dealing in millions of dollars of produce trades, you want an attorney that does PACA. I do PACA. That's something that I do a lot of. But you wouldn't want to go to just any attorney that does potentially like real estate transactions, because real estate and Perishable Agricultural Commodities Act are very different things. But if you're looking at real estate, then more likely than not, any real estate or unlawful detainer attorney could help you with that type of mediation. So look at what they practice. We'll go to the State Bar website, look at their areas of specialty, and if you call them, they could represent you as a mediator 5 years or more.
Well, speaking of packing, we're getting close to packing it up.
Well, just
Go
a
ahead.
quick question. I mean, so do you, looking back, do you love what you do? Or
I absolutely love what I do.
You never wake up in the morning and go, "Oh, the interior designer."
No, not at all.
Well, if you did, you'd want to move that hassock, by the way. It's the feng shui just isn't working on that.
So, and going to law school, arduous, really, really hard, but also, I mean, did you have fun? Was it fun?
Oh, I loved it.
It's fun.
I mean,
Okay, cool.
So a plug for my university, Chatham University School of Law, Fowler School of Law, since Dale Fowler gave him $55 million. Thank you, Dale Fowler. Yeah. I attended the Fowler School of Law now. I loved it. It really depends on where you are in your career.
Yeah.
I think at 35 or however old I was when I went to law school, 35, I didn't realize how much I would appreciate it being 55. Mm-hmm. It really empowers you to do an awful lot of things and help a lot of people. So it's a great thing. I think you're doing the right thing to do it. I do think if you're going to attend law school, you need to, from day one, be thinking about the bar exam.
Okay.
Because year 1 classes are what your bar exam is on. Years 2 and 3 are kind of a little bit of fluff based on year 1. The paper chase is about year 1 classes.
Now, have you seen the film?
I have not seen
Then
the
you
paper
need to
chase,
see the film.
but everybody talks about it, and I'm embarrassed to say I haven't seen it, but I will.
If you're not in law school yet, and you already know this, it's all about the study group.
Yeah.
You got to have the right study
believe
group.
that.
And I'm still friends. In fact, a guy from my study group got a referral for a young man to a great law firm out in Utah. And I hadn't reached out to him for years since the study group. And I sent him a cold email saying, well, since our study group did so well and you're a senior partner in a major firm, I thought I could introduce you to this young man. And that study group relationship means a lot. So I would
Yeah.
focus on that if you're going into law school.
John Bailey, thank you. That was great advice for listeners and good advice for you.
So helpful for me because it's the first year.
It's better to ask yourself that question. Let me ask it.
What?
Are you feeling good every day? I mean, exhausted, I don't doubt, but you love it.
I love it. It's not the lifestyle that I have right now is not sustainable for the rest of my life. I'll put it that way. It's not. It's really arduous. However, I absolutely love it. The classes are very interesting. I love the people. It's nice, and it's just really good to be reminded that it's possible. Because I do have a little bit of imposter. Everybody's so smart. And I'm not a dum-dum, but I get in these classes and I go, oh man, sometimes I feel like, oh gosh, do I deserve to be here? But I do love being there. So as long as they'll have me, I like being here.
Well,
we'll
on
see.
that bright note, quick reminder, you might be here next week.
I'm hoping.
Our buddy Marlo from Unchained, the wonderful group that works with young people and training dogs. We'll chat with her again. The following week, Beth Menon, from the Boys and Girls Club. We will chat with her, which will be interesting as well. And then we'll eat some turkey, go to sleep on the couch, and be on with our lives. The A Train is on its way in. I'm on my way out. As always, the show has been for Mark, for Georgianne, and for you. Until a week from today at noon right here in Santa Cruz Voice on Spotify and Apple when we once again raise the standards. I'm Jacoby. I'll see you soon.
If you should take a train